Let's start the meeting outright. Somebody step on my hair. Good afternoon. Welcome to the meeting of City Council. Today's date is Tuesday, October 31st, 2023. Today's invocation will be given by Pastor Roderick Blewett, New Horizons Church. If everyone would please silence your cell phones, and if you so choose, please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen. This thing on?
Yes, sir. It's on.
Thank you this morning for inviting us out, Pastor, brother. Amen. Father, we just thank you today, Lord. Hallelujah. For the opportunity, Lord, to be alive. Hallelujah. You said in you we live and in you we move. And in you we have our being. Father, we take not lightly, Lord, to be alive and to have strength, Lord, to come together as a city, Lord, and as a people. Father, you've brought us from many different backgrounds, and God, we just pray today that you would unify the hearts of this people, Lord. The leadership, Lord, the community, the city, those that are laboring, whether it be in the school districts or in the streets, Lord, we're all one family. And we pray, God, your word says, let this mind be in you. Father, for us to have your mind, we must give you room and space and opportunity, Lord, to dwell amongst us, Lord. And Father, as this council assembles, Lord, you've brought each one of them, Lord, with different purposes, Lord. You've called them to these places, and they sit in a place of authority. And Father, we lift them up before you today. Their families, their friends, Lord, their lives are committed to this city, intertwined, Lord, and it cannot be separated. We pray that you strengthen their hearts for the task at hand. Give them all of the wisdom that they need, Father, and most of all that they do, let them do it with unity and for your glory. You said in your word how good it is for brethren to dwell together in unity, for in such a place you'll command the blessing. And Father, we're praying that you would bless this community, bless this city council, everyone that will speak today, Lord, that through it all you'll be glorified. Father, touch our servicemen and women, Lord, those that are sacrificing in our streets, the crime that is rising, Lord, there is an answer. You said when the enemy comes in like a flood, that your spirit can raise up a standard. All of us are carriers potentially of your life. Help us, oh God, to see you as the great answer to the problems of this city and of this world. And we do all this today, and we ask it, Father, in the name of your Son, in Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have roll call, please?
Mayor West.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner, absent. Councilmember Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz. Present. Councilmember Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Samuel. And Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, today we have one proclamation and one presentation. Tina Broussard, the city clerk, will read the proclamation, and after it's read, we'll announce your name so that you and your members of your group can come up to the podium and shake hands with the council and take pictures.
Whereas family literacy programs play a pivotal role in empowering families and fostering a culture of reading within households. The program offers resources, guidance, and support to parents, equipping them with the necessary tools to engage their children in reading and learning. By promoting family literacy, these programs enhance children's education outcomes and enable parents to develop their own literacy skills. And whereas as part of its ongoing commitment to investing in education, ExxonMobil donated $5,000 to the United Way of Beaumont and North Jefferson County to support United Way is growing readers literacy initiative at Beaumont Independent School District. And whereas this program promotes improved attendance, behavior, and academic performance by awarding tokens to students for meeting their goals. The tokens are then used to select books from the vending machine to create or add to the student's home library. And whereas, though ExxonMobil sponsorship, the United Way of Beaumont in North Jefferson County will provide thousands of books to students at Peach MacArthur throughout the school year. By meeting incentives and goals established by the school district, students will earn tokens to exchange for books throughout the vending machine. Whereas the ExxonMobil BISD STEM Night will be held on November 8th at Ford Park from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. By partnering with Beaumont Independent School District, ExxonMobil hopes to help shrink the workforce gap in STEM fields and demonstrate that careers like engineering offer the power to make a difference in society. Whereas during the ExxonMobil BISD STEM Night, ExxonMobil Company will work closely with Beaumont ISD to promote curiosity among students, which the company hopes will lay a strong foundation for future learning and interest in STEM fields. Now, therefore, Roy West, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2023 as National Family Literacy Day and congratulates ExxonMobil on the launch of the United Way is Growing Readers Literacy Initiative with United Way of Beaumont and North Jefferson County. Accordingly, the mayor has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Beaumont to be affixed, signed Roy West on this day, October 31st, 2023.
And the proclamation with ExxonMobil and their partnerships with United Way of Beaumont and North Jefferson County accepting will be Mrs. Camilla Briggs, ExxonMobil Area Public and Governmental Affairs Manager, as well as everybody that is with her today. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. Good afternoon, Mayor West and all the city council members. I'm Mike Mustian. I am the ExxonMobil Beaumont Complex Manager, covering both the refinery and the chemical plant. I got a few prepared remarks, but just wanted to share a personal anecdote on why this proclamation and this program is so near and dear to my heart. My mom has been an English teacher for over 20 years in Southern Louisiana, and she's been instrumental in laying my foundation around my own education and setting me up for success. So I get really, really excited when we're able to participate in programs such as this to pay it forward and really try to give back to the community and to put our youngest neighbors and community members on the right footing. So I also wanted to share the official ribbon cutting for our book vending machine at Peach MacArthur will be held on Thursday, November 2nd, 2023 at 10 a.m. And I would like to invite everybody to join us for that exciting opportunity. You know, this investment in the book vending machines is absolutely an investment in all of our futures. You know, the kids that we have in our community today are going to pave the way for the future, not only in Beaumont, but across the country and in some places across the world. And we really hope that these vending machines will empower our youngest neighbors to lead successful lives by motivating them to read. Also in the proclamation, something I'm really excited about next week, we'll have our ExxonMobil BISD STEM Night. That'll be November 8th at Ford Park, 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Yours truly will be there, spending time with everybody. And, you know, we really want to partner with BISD, and where this comes back from a business perspective, I think I've shared with many of you in our conversations before, is we have a workforce gap in the STEM field. You know, despite all of our best efforts to promote STEM careers, we're still falling short as an industry. And we need to continue to educate our youngest neighbors and talk to them about all of the amazing opportunities that are right here in their backyard. You know, there's so many rich and rewarding careers that companies like ExxonMobil and other industry partners can provide, and you never have to leave where you grew up, which I think is really, really cool. So thank you for the time today. Thank you for the proclamation, and hope to see you guys at some of the events.
Thank you. Camille, if y'all would like to take a picture. All right, we're good, y'all. Now, for those that were here for the proclamation and you would like to leave, now's the time to do so. And thank you very much for coming. We have a presentation on the City of Beaumont's approach to mental health. Presenting will be Miles Haynes, Assistant to the City Manager on Special Projects. Thank you, Miles.
All right. Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council. Thank you, City Manager, for this opportunity to present on mental health. This is a byproduct of a lot of due diligence and work and a lot of discussion that you guys have had, and that's included in the strategic plan about mental health. And so I'll kind of present with the idea that hopefully at the end of this conversation, you can walk away with the overall approach to mental health that we plan on taking and maybe getting some input. So we go to the next slide. This will be my outline. It'll just talk about how did we get here when we're talking about mental health. You know, what do we have in place currently? You know, how do we measure mental health and where do we go from now? Next slide. So like I said, this is a city manager's initiative. Mr. Williams has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and he sees best practices. And mental health historically has not really been associated with local government. This was more so in communities, whether that be a faith-based community or organizations. I got my undergrad in social work from Lamar University, and I remember working on the west side of Port Arthur in Carver Terrace, Lewis Manor, and working with CPS, working with the local judges there, and we worked on things that we wouldn't have categorized as mental health, but it was never connected to the city of Port Arthur. And so that was all the way in 2009. And so now we're in 2023, and that conversation of mental health has been closely connected to local government. And that's what brings us to this conversation and the reason for this initiative by the city manager today. Like I said, this is a part of the strategic plan. In your strategic plan that you guys have voted on, it talks about community mental health, tracking goals, what kind of partners, a community, a needs assessment. And so all of those things are connecting dots on why we're having this conversation today. Along with that, there was a benefits consultant that came on and spoke previously regarding our healthcare costs and the amount that we pay in healthcare. And he made the comment of the idea of a possible wellness program could benefit our staff. And so that expanded the conversation of mental health, because in your strategic plan, it talks about the community, and Beaumont has a community and these staff. You have about 1,200 43 full-time staff, and about 123 part-time staff. And that's a community here that work on a lot of projects that comes across you guys' desk. And so now we're talking about two different communities. You have the community at large and your staff who works on a lot of things for that community. And so as we begin to do more research, I was tasked with this. So I start surveying staff, begin to learn of best practices of other municipalities, more so counties and how they funded mental health. And so that kind of is included in this whole conversation. So this is how we got here. It has been discussed by some of you guys periodically about mental health. And so that leads us to today's conversation on mental health. Next slide. What do we have in place? In that left corner at the top, you have a peer-to-peer model, and that's more so for the first responders. So I do want to start off by saying the staff have been great to work with. I've worked with legal. They've connected me to mental health officers in the police department. I've worked with the police department. I've talked with the fire department. I've talked with the health department, our benefits team, individuals that are over FMLA, personnel. And so this conversation today is a joint effort. I'm just the one presenting it to you. So I have to work with a lot of different, we have to cross-collaborate a lot in this particular conversation because mental health can mean so many different things to so many different people. And so what we want to do is identify what is plaguing us regarding mental health and then figure out a good approach moving forward. So what we have in place is for first responders, they have a peer-to-peer model, and it's a support system for them. They do have access to the other aspects that I will highlight later on in this presentation, but that is an approach because they spend so much time together and they face a little bit different situations than most staff do on a daily basis. Next up, you have your public health education and outreach. Public health, obviously, post-COVID, it's more common to associate public health with mental health, but they do a lot of education outreach. I think about 45% of our healthcare costs are related to diabetes, and so they do a free diabetes class to the public once a week at about 2 p.m. And so Kenneth Coleman is also a part of a lot of committees that are linked with other entities regarding the byproducts of mental health. And so that's something that we have had in place. You also have a Beaumont Police Department officer. I think his name is Cody Guidry. He is a mental health officer, and so he partners with Spindletop. So if there are any cases that are called on regarding that fall in the category of mental health, the police officer goes with a Spindletop individual, which is a social worker, and they assess that situation. They handle it in that manner. So that's currently what we have in place as well. Also, we have an EAP program. That's an employee assistance program. The city of Beaumont pays about $1.33 per employee. This allows employees to have 6 free sessions of counseling, and that could be over a range of topics, whether that be for your mental health, for your financial literacy. There are a range of topics that this group can provide as far as counseling. So it's anonymous. We don't know why they would go to this program. This is just a referral basis for individuals who may need this program. And so that's, as of today, that's what we have had in place. Next slide. How do we measure mental health? I think it's an important thing because it's such a big conversation. It can mean so many different things to so many different people, but these are the things that we want to use as measuring to determine if we are serving, our staff appropriately in our community. Like I said, the benefit consultant brought the idea up of a potential wellness program, and you guys probably are familiar with the idea of a wellness program. Most bigger companies have that. And so we currently have one through Blue Cross Blue Shield, but the engagement on that program is really low. And so when you look at measuring mental health, you want to re-engage your staff members, community, or constituents, so that when you're more engaged, it's almost like you have a better community and you have better results by way of having healthier staff. And it's almost like an investment. So you would rather invest in something like this. So therefore, you have a better work environment, and hopefully that can equal better health benefits for your employees. We also would measure mental health by educational staff. And so we would bring out different people that are focused in this particular area to have maybe lunch and learns or just opportunities where staff members could get a chance to learn different best practices in mental health so that they can learn, because this subject matter is a big topic and we need to figure out a way to narrow it down. So that's going to be a part of how we measure moving forward. Also, the EAP program, it presents to us on a quarterly basis a dashboard. So we can see what are the cases or the reasons people go to the EAP program. We don't know who they are. We don't know what department or entity or division. We don't know who that information remains anonymous, but we do get the data. So if we identify that a lot of our employees are stressed out, then we could be proactive and create a different approach to improve our environment and make sure it's not triggering that stress. We understand that our work does come with a level of stress because we are connected to the public just like you guys are. But there are best practices that we can put in place based on the data that we'll see over time. Also, healthcare investment. I think this is connected to the wellness program, and it is a way that we could start to look at this as a way to improve our employee base, and it sends a sign to people that encourages them to want to apply for jobs here. It helps with retention and retaining top talent when you have a healthier work environment, and when you invest into their health care through this avenue that we're talking about today, you improve your chances of having a top-tier workplace that's an example all across the state and maybe in the nation. Next slide. So this is just a snapshot of what we would see on a quarterly basis from the EAP program. This is the Employee Assistance Program. It tells us the percentage obviously associated with the top 5 clinical personal concerns. And so as we begin to measure this moving forward, we would identify if there's anything that we can put in place to assist us that we don't trigger any of these things. You can't solve certain issues, but you can put best practices in place. So this is a part of that measurement that I was mentioning earlier. And I only gave you a snapshot, but we do have I have a whole report of what we get from the EAP, and I work with the benefits team, Ms. Susan, and to assist us in this process. So next slide. Where do we go now with all that information? What do we do? What is going to be our approach regarding mental health? You can go to the next slide. All right. So the first step for us is it starts internal. And I mentioned employee wellness program or the wellness program, but the best wellness programs have high engagement, and the way you engage employees is through initiatives. And so that terminology is just called employee well-being. You can increase the engagement by example of reducing emails that you send out after hours, not you guys to your city manager, but individuals that get off after 5. Just want to clarify so you don't think that. So, well, let me go to this point. The city manager stated to the directors that their mental health matters to him. And so this came out of a meeting where we had a discussion with different directors, and he let them know that your mental health matters. And if you need to take a break, just notify me. We don't want to create an environment that's a toxic work environment. So out of that discussion, we talked about best practices, and some of the staff mentioned, having pets come to the work environment. Sometimes that helps reduce stress. The emails, you can schedule emails and they can be sent early in the morning even if you plan to send them after hours, or if you send it after hours, you can imply in the email at the bottom to say not for immediate response. And this is for the majority of the staff that gets off at a certain time. Also, we once we engage employees and we increase that engagement, these programs are more sustainable when employees become ambassadors. It's not going to be an individual who leads this initiative. It will just be everybody. It's a best practice. It's implemented within our work culture. And so these are going to be things that I think are going to help us in the long term. Also, you have to have an internal committee because if I come up with all the ideas, or 2 or 3 people come up with the ideas, we miss a lot of best practices that are already here. So we want to re-engage the employees by having an internal committee that will lead this type of initiative. And things that are other examples of employee well-being, or something like a vending machine, or how you rearrange your break rooms and things like that. And so other companies and municipalities do implement this, and they are signs of a healthy and fun work environment. Also, mental health education. There needs to be a lot of education around this topic. And so we plan to partner with Lamar University and other entities that have counselors, social workers, and people that work in this profession to come out and educate staff on what that actually looks like. You go to the next slide. The next phase of it, once you have increased engagement, you have a better wellness program. So this is what connects the wellness to the employee well-being initiatives, and it will make us more successful in the long term. Like I said earlier, education outreach is going to be key. This is going to be a long-term approach. This is a sensitive topic, and it's something new. I think I previously presented on grants, and some of these things are best practices that have been implemented in the past. Cities addressing mental health, that's different. And so we want to use these as ways to help guide us to make sure that we're staying focused and get the best outcome. So education outreach is going to be connected. And we also want to expand our benefits that's connected to different employers in the area, like a gym, maybe giving a discount or different things like that, that our employees can receive their benefits from. So the wellness program that the personnel team, they're actually interviewing wellness companies now and looking at what would be a best fit for us. Once we decide on whatever company that is down the line, we'll be able to identify what are some things that we can add locally that improve the well-being through this wellness program. So this will be another ongoing activity as well. Next slide. So next up, I'm going to bring Dr. Ginger up. I don't want to butcher her last name, so I'll say Dr. Ginger. She's the chair of the social work program, sociology and anthropology program. And so when we begin to talk, they are already doing a lot of research connected to mental health. And we previously had a social work intern, help out with the city of Beaumont. And what we're starting to see that's a best practice across the state is that social workers implementing into local government is a good approach to improving your work culture and different ideas that we have around this particular topic. So I'll bring Dr. Ginger up, and she'll provide you with the research and just kind of a snapshot overall.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Miles, for inviting us, and to council members, Mayor West, for having us here. I just want to talk real quickly about some of the collaborations we are doing now, some of the ones we're looking toward in the future that really relate to what Miles has presented, particularly as it relates to the local community and to the city. So the current mental health issues in our area, as Miles mentioned, I am chair of sociology, social work, criminal justice, and anthropology at Lamar University. So that's one section of Lamar University, a lot more departments that are doing research related to this. However, we know that there are some significant mental health issues in our area. According to the county health rankings and roadmaps, frequent mental distress, our county ranks higher than both the state and the national average, and markedly higher than both of those. And frequent mental distress is defined as more than 14 days of reporting mental health distress within a 30-day period. So that's pretty significant. We know that excessive drinking is marked higher, and suicides as well for our county as compared to both the state and the national averages. And on top of that, we are considered a mental health care providers shortage area. So according to the Health Resources and Services Association, we have limited number of providers to meet the needs of our community. So not just providers for any community of our size, but when you add in that we mark higher in the mental health needs, it becomes a really significant issue. So we have fewer people, at Lamar University, we're training these mental health care providers. We're getting them educated, but what we see is they come out here, they're either from this area, they come from another area, they get a great education, they get great experience, and then they leave. And so we have fewer healthcare providers to meet these needs. So some of the research we've been doing over the past year to address this, and some kind of going into the future, I want to share with you. The first one is the health and wellness landscape in Southeast Texas. And this was one where the Episcopal Health Foundation reached out to us and asked us to do a basic needs assessment of what are the healthcare and mental health needs beyond, consider the non-medical drivers of health or the social determinants of health, the things that keep people from seeking the mental health and the healthcare services beyond just the physical health. And we did quite a extensive needs assessment of Jefferson, Orange, Liberty, and Hardin County of what are some of the barriers. And of course, we see the main barriers to be lack of transportation, lack of resources for those who are under-resourced. So persons living in poverty, having no ability to seek the care that they need. The next project that we did over the past year, and we're seeking funding again, but we were funded last year, through an internal grant, Lamar University Center for Resiliency, is the Mental Health Interventions Networking and Diversion Program. And that program partnered with the City of Beaumont court system and with our local mental health authority, Spindletop. And we provided interns and trained interns to work with individuals who have been referred to the criminal justice system. So it was a diversion effort to keep people out of the criminal justice system and get them into the mental health care system where they can get their needs met. And then the last one is a research project that we're working on right now. It's an external grant we're seeking funding for, and it's the climate and mental health assessments and resources for Gulf Coast environments. And this one we're seeking funding through the Gulf Resources Project through the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Math. And the focus of this, again, is to gather that information related to what are the risk factors for mental health crises post-disaster, or related to chronic climate stressors. So when we're living in an environment where we have chronic climate stressors, which we all know we do, how is that affecting and impacting the mental health of our community? So these are just some of the examples of ways that we can partner and ways that we hope to continue to partner. Just from our department, as I said, the Lamar University has so many other projects going on. When it comes to interns, we had the intern last year. We're excited about bringing more interns in so that they can learn not only about the macro side of the work, but also ways that they can connect and better provide resources to individuals in need. So I will hand it back to you.
And information like that is connected to our strategic plan. And I'll read it out. This is in the strategic plan. It says community mental health goals, problems, problem analysis, needs assessment, best practices, potential partners, city role, report with options, direction, funding, and city actions. And so this is in alignment with this particular strategic plan, especially on the community side. Go to the next slide. Like I said, I just read the strategic plan. The goal is obviously to complete it, identify community partners, because like you guys had a recent meeting with BISD, the conversation of mental health came up. You talked about a mental health joint task force. And so a lot of the funding, I think Senate Bill 26 has about $2 billion that was allocated in that, and about 15 million of those dollars can be used for mental health intervention, and it's through a grant program. And so we do qualify in that Senate bill as a potential grantee or person, individual or group that can receive that funding. And so the state of Texas obviously had the surplus of funding, and that some of that funding was moved over for mental health. Most of the funding that was moved over through this Senate bill has been really allocated towards hospitals and beds, because they identify psychiatric wards and mental health facilities as a priority. Also, there are community partners like ourselves that they also want to fund to make sure that we're doing a lot of connection to services or education outreach regarding mental health. So there is some state funding to capture on this, but we can't really approach mental health without partners. Obviously, the research is going to be needed, and there are many other partners that we haven't named, but this actually puts us in that direction to attack this particular study here today. Next slide. Any questions? That concludes my presentation. regarding mental health.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Oh, there's a question. I'm sorry. Councilman Turner.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Haynes, for your presentation. I know we said we have some wellness programs with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Just from my knowledge to educate me because I'm not aware, do you know kind of what they offer? Or?
Yeah, so the wellness program is called Well on Target, and the reason that the personnel and benefits team are looking at another program is because the best wellness program is the one that the employees use. And this one just is not as user-friendly. You kind of have to go through the website, then back to the app, and there's some log on, you're using it, but there's some complications with it. I tried to go through it and see what's best. I actually called Well on Target to kind of identify what do they have. And I had a lot of trouble myself as a person who understands technology. So I reached out to our benefits team to see the engagement that we have on that, and it's really low. And so we need to have something that's a little bit more easier and accessible regarding a wellness program. And so that's the purpose for Chris Callan and his team to start looking at other wellness programs that can be user-friendly.
Thank you, Miles. I'm glad you identified that and we're working on a solution to fix it. The second one, I noticed you mentioned an internal committee, just the basic concept. How do you think it should look?
I think it's more sustainable when you have employees, especially you use the example of water utilities, right? They work in different conditions. So the way they may determine a positive mental health initiative may be totally different than somebody that works in City Hall. The environments are different. The work conditions are different. Obviously, your lifestyle is different. And so when you pull a committee together that have diverse work environments, they kind of know what's needed in their environment from a healthy habit standpoint. And so we need to include them in the conversation so it doesn't become, I read an article and I recommended 7 things and it doesn't really work for everybody. So it's not a one size fit all. So that's the purpose of, as we move forward, committee would be best in that particular area.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Samuel.
Yes, I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation. I've been concerned about mental health and how it impacts our city. I'm happy to see that we're working with other partners and we're identifying those partners. Spindletop, as well as the county, as well as BISD, they've done a lot of things to help because I'm seeing it every day on the streets. We have to begin to not just see people, but we must look at people and understand them. And even those who are facing the community every day, our employees, they all at times get weak. And this is something that many times is placed in a closet they don't want to talk about because people will view them differently. But this is one of the things about life. And as we move forward, that's a tremendous problem across the country, across the world. We're dealing with people with mental health concerns. It happens to all of us. We all get weak sometimes. We all fall down. But knowing that we're not just talking about doing something, but we're actively trying to be participants in a solution. We're not going to solve the problem, but I believe in that old fisherman's thing. If you just help one as you go down this beach of life, then we've done more than others have done. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for bringing this forward, initiating it, pushing it. Thank you, Miles, for doing what you've done, and that's connecting the dots. And thank you. I didn't get it, Miss Ginger. I didn't get your last name.
Gummelt.
Gummelt? Okay, thank you very much. Lamar University has a strong social work department. They're proactive. They're actively working to try to find solutions. I'm happy I had the opportunity to go through that department. So thank you, and I look forward to this continuing because Spindletop, I can't say enough for Spindletop and what they're doing for our city. What they're doing working with the police department, BPD, working with them, as well as working with the hospitals. You'd be surprised how many people come through these hospitals every day, and the Baptist Hospital. They do a tremendous job of working with folks. We fall short still, way behind the curve, but we can't complain about that. We have to continue to press for the higher mark. And I thank you for that, and thank you. I reflect back. That was a time that, you know, you go a couple of weeks and you see somebody that you feel like has a problem. But now you can't go 2 blocks without running or encountering someone you know that's having an issue in life. And we have to be careful about how we look at people. We have to begin to see people. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Durio.
Thank you, Miles. I just have a couple of questions. I was asked this: is there a mental health hospital or clinic here in Beaumont?
A clinic I'm not aware of. I think Baptist Hospital has
Behavioral center.
They have a behavioral center, and so they are currently working to increase their amount of beds that they can have. Kenneth Coleman, Public Health Director, did connect me with them. And so I think they have access to new funding to improve their ability to service more clients. So that is a limitation that kind of rolls back down to the city, but we do have one.
Okay. And also, one of the, I guess, the largest groups that suffer from mental health problems are veterans. You know, is something in play as far as addressing that? I mean, so we have a lot of veterans that commit suicide every day.
Well, that's going to be the important role of that committee if we start getting different people with different backgrounds and we get that information, because we're just in the due diligence phase. This is just the general direction that we want to go. Did you want to say something, Mr. Williams?
I was, Ms. Gummer was
Okay.
shaking her head.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Could you come up and, yeah. I shouldn't be answering that.
I didn't want you guessing.
So back to local clinics, I know Legacy provides some behavioral health services as well, and there are several private agencies that provide the mental health services. Back to the veterans piece, of course, our local Veterans Administration provides services. We have social workers there, several of them. It's never enough, though, to be quite honest. It doesn't begin to make the kind of impact that it needs to, because we know this is such a significant issue. Mental health care is just health care. You know, we don't look down upon someone who has diabetes. And so the fact that for so many years we have had, you know, these where we look down upon someone with mental health issues, it's just health care. And it's something we all experience.
Okay, thank you. One last question, Miles. This is for you. The Employee Assistance Program, EAP.
Yes, sir.
Is that available to part-time employees?
From my understanding, I think the benefit is for full-time.
Okay.
Because that's included in the benefits package.
Some of our employees that may be able to use that and that are under a lot of pressure and stress and deal with the public with phone calls and emails and text messages every day may be able to use that. Exactly who I'm talking about.
Council members.
Our benefits,
Oh, you
our
advocated
benefits
for something.
packages extend to full-time employees. only extend to full-time employees, only to our part-time employees, and unfortunately, our council members do not qualify for our insurance or benefit package.
Probably some of the most needed folks.
Baptist Hospital, Spindle Top, as well as Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, and they've even included the county court at law with Judge Holmes. That's a specialty court. There's a veterans program that there's an understanding now that PTSD is not just because of veterans in the service. Many individuals that live in homes, single-family homes or multi-family, both parents' homes, they deal with PTSD. It's prevalent, and that's just one of the igniters or things that presents this problem. So again, there's a lot of agencies out there that's now working toward trying to deal with this goal. with this problem, ongoing problem. But now we're seeing them coming together as a conglomerate working toward the common goal. And the more we increase that circle of help, the better it will be for all the citizens of Beaumont.
Councilman Getz?
As chair of the Mayor's Homeless Coalition, I want to express my appreciation to Lamar for having some of your students come to several of our sessions, actually, and would invite them to increase their participation to perhaps engage in a project where they could actually go out in the field and maybe talk to some of the homeless. We know that the homeless, many of them have mental health issues. And so that might be something that we can talk about later and collaborate with on that. We also express appreciation to Spindletop for almost always having people attend our Homeless Coalition sessions and for the services that they provide. So thank you.
Councilman Durio?
Miles, have the grant you were talking about earlier, have we applied for that grant?
Grants.
The Senate bill?
Oh, so the Senate bill is just the available funding in the state of Texas. We have not applied for any grants. We are supporting Lamar University and their efforts to get grants, but we have not. We will start pursuing more grants, but that was just to identify there is state funding available for this particular issue, but we haven't done any grants just yet.
Okay, thank you, Miles.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank the council for listening to this presentation, because this is something that impacts all of us, you know, whether and I wanted Miles to focus more on the community, because this is more than just a city of Beaumont employee issue. It's a community issue. Mental health is a thing that impacts not just mentally, but it costs us money. It creates other social issues for us, you know. Homelessness, as Mike mentioned, crime, we have problems with that. And it's just, it's better to be more proactive than reactionary in this situation. If you react into a problem that's already there, it's going to cost you more money. It's going to be more expensive. You know, we have other partners in the community that are working. Even our state representative is looking at putting more money to put a mental health facility in Jefferson County, which will help, and our police officers won't have to transport them to halfway across the state, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a good deal. The possible partnership with BISD, that was a big topic from them in our joint meeting. And I was surprised how big a topic it was. So I think this is an opportunity for us to work on a lot of our issues, a lot of our social ills and social issues by being proactive with it.
Thank you. And thank you both. And I will say, I believe Speaker Phelan and State Representative Christian Manuel, there was legislation passed to the tune of tens of millions of dollars for Southeast Texas for mental health. So we're off at least to a better start. All right. Now is the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may have public comments. You can make public comments on the consent agenda, regular agenda items 1 through 5, or any other topic. This is going to be the only time for citizens to speak. Items 6 through 9 have already been heard in public hearing. The city clerk will call your name when it's your time to speak. When you approach the podium, please say your address, your city, and your state. You will have 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up.
Mary Williams, public comments.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Mary Williams, and I'm a retired United States Army veteran, a Gulf War veteran, 4 combat tours altogether in my life. So with that being said, yes, we do have a mental issue crisis here in Jefferson County and the surrounding areas. But I would like to also acknowledge, we speak about our veterans, but we don't have a mental health hospital here for our veterans or for any citizen here. What happens if we go into crisis mode? What happens if a veteran all of a sudden just loses it? Sometimes we get to that breaking point. What do we do then? Spindletop, it's all great, but they don't have a facility that can house a veteran or a citizen here. We need to do something about that. I don't know what to do, but I understand that we might have a medical facility built for our veterans, a hospital possibly. We've been in the works with Dade Phelan, Congressman Weber. In fact, we have a meeting next week with him. So we would like that to happen. However, it still hasn't happened, and we need that. I also think that our veterans deserve the best care that they can have. I think that we are not giving them that right now. There's no reason that we have 46 veterans taking their lives in suicide every day. That's unacceptable. And I'm on the front lines marching for our veterans. And I think we just need to really focus in on that. And I want to give a shout out to Lamar University and the Department of Resiliency. I met 2 weeks ago with Dr. Gregory there, and she did an impact of military service on women. And it was a very interesting topic because we were able to meet with her and discuss the issues that we as women veterans go through on a daily basis, and that we're not being met with any type of care. So I just would hope we can apply for this grant money. I think it's very much needed. I think we need to have a medical facility for mental health patients to be admitted to. And we celebrate Veterans Day in 2 weeks, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Bruce Simeon, public comments.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Bruce Simeon. I am the pastor of 3146 Concord, New Revelation Worship Center. First and foremost, I want to thank you because my church is directly across from the Shell station where the shootings and the beatings and everything else occurred. I've already met with the emergency management coordinator with the police department, and I'm going to assist them in trying to put some things into place. I was here on last week, and I watched as the children of St. Anthony's came and did a beautiful song and a prayer and a Pledge of Allegiance, which was beautiful. But there are children all over this city, predominantly on the north end, south end, that don't have the affiliation with our public service, such as our police departments and our sheriff's departments. And these children are terrified. They even are used as lookouts to tell the drug dealers when the police officers are coming. There are some things that we need to put in place. And I know that people come before y'all with an abundance of things every week and what they need or what they want or what they expect. And you can't do everything. I'm composing a letter right now, and I'm going to send it out to all the pastors in this area. It's time for us to stand up and do some things and to assist the community. We don't need our community to be like Missouri when the police department was against the city itself and against their citizens. Beaumont is doing a beautiful job. I was a police officer. I'm trying to hurry this along, but I was a police officer in Lafayette for several years. I was a public relations officer there. I worked narcotics. And some of the things that I told them back there before I instituted neighborhood policing is now occurring, where they're having shootings every day in Lafayette, shootings every day in Opelousas, shooting every day in New Iberia. We've built a beautiful edifice, a beautiful downtown in Beaumont, Texas. But what good is the Golden City if you got to go through a jungle to get there? We need to be proactive.
on some things that we need to do here in this community instead of reactive. If we'd have been proactive across the street from our church, maybe we wouldn't have had a killing. Maybe we wouldn't have had a young man beaten to smithereens. It's time for us to come together as a whole. It's no me, it's no you. I thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for allowing me to speak here this afternoon. I've volunteered my services already to the police department in helping policemen with their mental issues.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Is there a motion and a second for our approval of our consent agenda?
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of a consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into agenda item number 1?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1 to the contract with Callan Marine Limited of Galveston for the Riverfront Park Restoration Project. And staff is recommending approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 1?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 1. Any discussion? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Turner.
Mr. Manager or staff, our completion date just so the public can be aware of our projected completion date, can somebody just say it so we're all on the same page?
September 2024.
Okay, September 2024, and I know that it said 12 days. Do you think that would be the actual, or you think it'd be a drastic change? You think we could still stay around that September 2024 date?
We're still within schedule currently, but of course, we've got a long ways to go, and it's weather permitting, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Durio.
Well, Mr. Manager or Bart, I was just wondering, is the money for this change order, is this coming from the grant funding that we already have?
Yes, sir. It's coming from the FEMA. It's a mixture of FEMA, some state help on our match, as well as some restore funding from the BP oil spill.
Thank you.
All in favor of approving item number 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into agenda item number 2?
Council, consider a resolution approving the purchase of 12 vehicles for use in various city departments. And staff is recommending approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 2?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 2. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us to agenda item number 3?
Council, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 3 to the contract with Allco LLC for the Collier's Ferry Pump Station Project. And it comes with recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 3?
Move to approve. Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 3. Any discussion? Councilman Getz?
Mr. Manager, I'm a little concerned about what the aesthetics are going to look like if we remove these trees. I understand why they may be needed, but you know, we are doing a lot of work out at a site that is adjacent to Collier Ferry Park. Have we really looked at what the long-term impact is that going to be to the aesthetics of that area?
The trees in question are between the project site and the cemetery. So we were hoping to not have to remove trees in this area. However, because 5 feet of excavation has to happen around the foundation to properly lay the foundation, we found that the tree roots were in the way. So we're going to have to go in and remove them. We looked at potentially shifting the foundation within the site, but there's simply not enough room. So in this case, they've got to go. And these are trees that grew up in a fence line, basically. They weren't necessarily planned landscaping trees.
Okay, but I'm not just talking about these trees. I'm talking about the whole site of what it's going to look like when it's done. Are we going to do something to try to camouflage or blend that in so that it doesn't look so obtrusive out there?
Well, the site will be fenced. If we haven't really discussed doing any kind of decorative surround on it, but we could in the future.
All right.
Councilman Turner?
I kind of share the same concerns when we look at the long-term plan of how our riverfront can possibly go all the way down to where the golf course is, and it could potentially be a walking nature trail. I kind of do think we need to look long-term at the aesthetics of how we want it to look. Everybody can kind of envision it. I know we're focused on riverfront right now and the possible hotel convention center, but if we're going to actually think long-term, we got a lot of room to grow if you go towards the golf course. What golf course is that, Councilman Durio?
That's the Beaumont Country Club.
Beaumont, yeah, he play over there all the time, him and the other one. So I just want to make sure I had the right one. But I do want us to keep in mind the long-term aesthetics, and I'd rather start getting on it early than waiting too late, because maybe we can identify some grant funding, other funding, some nature grants that we could take a look at.
All those in favor of approving item number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us to agenda item number 4?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of a PAX PWM250 mixer assembly for use at the Southwest Elevated Storage Tank. And it comes with the recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 4?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second of approval for item number 4. Any discussion? Councilman Getz, then Councilman Durio.
Do our other elevated tanks have these types of mixers?
We have one in Dishman right now, but the plan is to put these in all of the storage tanks as we go through them. When we got into the west tank and we started doing the rehabilitation of that tank, we found that we had significant rafter rust in there, and that was due to stratification within the tank and the chlorine gas eating into the metal. So there's some definite benefits to having these mixers, and that's our plan, is to get them in place in all of the tanks over the next year or so.
Thank you.
Bart, is this the tank located over there on Municipal?
This is the one on Washington by the fire station and
That's
the
the
med
one.
station.
Okay.
All those in favor of approving item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into item number 5?
Council to consider the adoption of a naming policy ordinance. This has been discussed by council on a few occasions, and now it's being brought back to you for consideration of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 5?
Move to approve the adoption of the naming policy.
Is there a second for approval?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 5. Any discussion?
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Felshaw.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask this council if there's any interest in adding as one of the qualifications for this, that the individual's name that's being considered, it would only be done so after they're deceased. And with that said, I'd ask the city attorney just to read the verbiage and how it would read.
So if you have your packets with you, it would be on page 3, section 2, naming categories. We would add a Roman numeral 5 to read, "The honor must be posthumous."
I would support that.
Councilman Getz?
I'll accept an amendment to the motion to include that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Turner?
Thank either, Mayor. Do we currently have any facilities that are named after anyone alive or that has been named after anyone alive? I'm not sure if I'm 100% in support of putting ourselves in that position.
To my knowledge, no. Even the Sterling Pruitt Center is named after an individual person, but it was after their death.
So out of all our facilities in the past, we never had one. Wow.
You talking city facilities or just in
Facilities.
city facilities? Not to my knowledge.
Councilman Samuel?
I have the same concern, Councilman, because we never know what the situation might be. But to prohibit something that hasn't been done, also, it could be a situation where someone deserves it. I'm not saying that it is, but we've not named any facility after someone living in our street, to my knowledge. So I'm a little concerned about doing that when there's no real need for it at this point. That's a consideration that we can always use. Am I correct?
Yeah, so the way the ordinance is currently written, council has the final say-so on naming facilities. If the split or the compromise could be is that this wouldn't apply to features like trees, benches, smaller functions, but the posthumous would only be for city facilities.
Councilman Durio, then Councilman Felshaw.
I've heard Mayor Pro Tem Turner say more than once, and I'm in agreement in giving folks their flowers while they're still here. What's the reasoning behind why would y'all not want to do if it's a deserving person and they're alive and the council agreed to it? If we put ourselves in this situation, then we said, man, you deserve this, but we're not going to name this to you until after you pass.
So the general concern is that the story of someone's life isn't complete until it ends. And so the problem could be we can name a building after an individual, and then 5 years later, that person's convicted of several heinous crimes. Then we would need to rename it.
Change the name.
The benefit to waiting until after their death is that they could be accused, they can't be convicted.
Well, we've had several statues and buildings and even army bases in this country named after members of the Confederate Army, and they didn't change those.
Doesn't make it right.
Some of them.
Doesn't make it right. But the general concept behind the naming policy is that we wanted to make sure that the names that we chose for buildings or for features were for things that created positive associations with the city. And so that was kind of the rationale behind that, is that, we wanted to make sure that, during a person's lifetime, if we chose to name a building after them, that the quote unquote story of their life would have been already compelled. And so we'd have been able to say that there was no negative association with that individual.
Well, the only thing about that causes you to think negatively about the possibilities of the future. But if there's a deserving person, as shown by their actions, and there's enough support on that council, they couldn't do it because it's against our policy. So I understand that, but I tend to look at the glass as being half full rather than looking at it being half empty, thinking most people have a desire to do that which is good, but many times it's not that way. But that is something that can be dealt with. We can always, we've not done it, but they can always take a name off. If they have done, and that way it has been proven, at least by a court or something, that they're not worthy of that acknowledgement. So it's half a dozen one way, 6 in another.
Yes, Councilman Felshaw, then Assistant City Manager Boone.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I was going to answer Councilman Duriel's question, but the city attorney did a great job in doing that. And my only concern is that we not put ourselves in a position where we have to take someone's name down. And this is a common practice, not with all organizations, but with many organizations. They choose to do this to avoid that conflict of putting someone's name up. 5 years later, they've committed some, they've engaged in some behavior that's less than attractive. And so they have to pull that name down, which creates a problem within the community. And so that was my reason for offering this amendment, that we not put ourselves in that position. In a perfect world, this is not something we'd have to consider, but this is not a perfect world, and we're dealing with people. And so these kind of things can happen. But she did a great job at answering it, so thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Assistant City Manager.
Yeah, Mayor, the street renaming policy has been excluded from this policy because we already have a process and procedure. But just to clarify, we do have, I think, at least one street named after a living individual, and I think we have another one that's an honorary street that's named after a living individual. So I just wanted to add that context.
Well,
Councilman Getz, then Councilman Turner.
I kind of like the compromise suggested by the city attorney, in which she suggested that things like trees, park benches don't necessarily have to have this type of restriction. I said in April that I think people should be given the opportunity to be honored while they were alive. While I still feel that way, I also acknowledge that when people might have something named after them while they're alive, there is the possibility that something could happen subsequent to that event in which the body that enacted that might feel differently, the community might feel differently, and sometimes, as we have seen here in Beaumont, that can be very controversial. This is an opportunity to have a person's entire life chapter written and evaluate that posthumously. I'm okay with it either way, honestly, but I think there is some value to the amendment that Councilmember Felshaw offered.
Any other discussion? Councilman Turner.
for me, I totally understand the value, but I totally do cherish the part when someone is on their way out. You know, I don't want to use anybody in particular as an example, but it's also really good for some of these individuals to actually see something positive in some of their last days. I just think to put ourselves in a position to where that's the only option, for me, I can't support that. But I would like to be also open-minded to, we do have individuals who have done tremendous things in our community, whether it be anything. And I understand things can be controversial, but if someone does something wrong, it's common sense, you remove the name. But that's just my stance on it. I just don't want to put us in a box because we never know what opportunity may come up and what we may have to deal with. I just don't support putting us in that box.
Yes.
Could we get some direction then on how we could amend this to read that we're only speaking to buildings and not naming trees or benches or lesser items that it would rise to the level of this type of scrutiny?
I already ahead of you. The compromise would be the same section, but now it'll say the honor must be posthumous, be semicolon. This requirement shall only apply to city buildings, facilities, and parks. So that would allow for streets, which is not included in this ordinance, but streets and benches and trees and other, what we call features, to still be allowed to be named after individuals who are still living.
Okay, Councilman Getz, would you accept that?
I would.
And who seconded? You?
Did you
I did. I said.
second?
I did. I second that.
Councilman Neal. So is everybody clear? Councilman,
All right, so this is kind of what I'm thinking, and I see Councilman Turner's wheels spinning. Put an example on the table. You want a sports complex, and an athlete donates millions of dollars to the facility to have it built. Is it appropriate to name it after that person if they're still living? So my thought is, there's concerns, and I personally do not support naming a building after somebody living, but that's just my opinion. And I know several of y'all do. But you could require a supermajority of the council to pass something like that, to where it's not just a 4-3 vote one way or the other.
I like that.
In which case, it would now read,
Give us a third rendering, if you would, City Attorney.
good thing I think on the fly. The honor must be posthumous. This requirement shall only apply to city buildings, comma, facilities, and parks. And then we could do another statement that would read, a supermajority vote by council can overrule this requirement.
Was that your intent? Okay, once again, Councilman Getz,
I think that's great.
I yield to it.
Councilman Samuel?
Councilman Turner?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm definitely okay with that. It was a big concern of mine that when we have basketball courts, football fields, the whole magnitude, I just didn't want to box ourselves. Somebody made a nice
The basketball
donation.
court wouldn't have been included in this, 'cause that would have been considered a feature, but it will allow for now a sports complex with supermajority vote.
Okay, even better. Thank you.
all right. All in favor of approving item number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into agenda item number 6?
Yes, Mayor. Council consider a request for a specific use permit and a rezone from RCRH, Residential Conservation Revitalization Historic District, to GCMD2, General Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling 2 District, to allow a motor vehicle dealer for property located at 2190 Calder Avenue. And approval of the ordinance is recommended with the following conditions. All lighting installed must be directional and shielded from all residential properties to the northwest, north, and east. 2, shall install an 8-foot wood or masonry fence along the entire length of the eastern property line. 3, all business operations shall be in compliance with Section 28-04-007 performance standards. 4, no permanent structures or appurtenances shall be placed within the easement, alleyway, or right-of-way property. And 5, the motor vehicle dealer business shall only operate between the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
All right, is there a motion for item number 6?
I'll make a
Move
motion.
to deny.
Wait. Let's start from the beginning, because it's in your notes. You're not reading your notes, Mayor.
I'm not reading my notes, excuse me.
This is going to be 2 votes.
Going to be 2 votes.
It's going to be 2 votes. The first vote is going to be for rezone, and the second vote is going to be for SUP. And regardless of how you vote on the second, you still have to vote on the first. You still have to vote on the second. It does require a supermajority vote, which means it's going to be a roll call vote.
Does somebody want to make a motion on the first motion of,
So the first motion that we need is on a
Regarding
rezone.
I make a motion to deny the rezoning request.
Second.
did you get who seconded that, Tina?
Councilman Duria.
Councilmember Durio, yes, sir. So we're going to do a record vote. Mayor West?
Wait,
Yes.
you want to do discussion?
Discussion.
Yeah. we're gonna
Sorry.
do Discussion.
We'll do discussion first then.
Is there a discussion on item number 6, first motion? Councilman Turner, Councilman Getz.
City staff, can you help me with some direction with this? I noticed, I think this came through planning and zoning and it was approved. Can you kind of explain what some of the pushback or what some of the,
It was denied by planning.
it was
and zoning.
denied? Okay.
On here it said.
So
It says
we-
approved on here.
It was, okay, so it was recommended for approval, subject to the conditions. Again, just to give some context without kind of litigating the whole case. This had been used as a parking lot historically. And it is located at the intersection of 6th and McFadden. But again, there was neighborhood opposition. We do have some written opposition to it, and there's just concerns with the incompatibility of land use. But to answer your question, the Planning Commission did recommend approval subject to the conditions.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to see, what was the recommendation. I got a lot of emails as well in opposition. I just wanted to see what it was recommended by planning and zoning. I want to confirm that was accurate.
Councilman Getz?
So one of the problems, and this isn't just related to this particular item, but anytime anything goes before planning and zoning, notices are distributed to landowners that are within 200 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, per state law.
Per state law, notices are distributed within 200 feet of the location that's under consideration. 200 feet is not very far. It is what state law requires, but it's not very far. And then what often happens, as has happened here, is that once it gets through planning and zoning, then it becomes public, and people that are 250 feet, 300 feet, 500 feet become aware of it, and then you start getting stacks of emails in opposition to this. And boy, we've gotten a lot, including emails in opposition from the Chambers House that's operated by the Beaumont Heritage Society, from the McFadden Ward Museum, as well as many, many, many neighbors in Old Town. This Old Town neighborhood is unique, and people move there because they want to be protected against commercial intrusion. And, you know, our city has done a very good job historically of making sure that the historical overlay district that comprises the Old Town neighborhood is complied with. And so I think that we should continue to do that, and perhaps also consider expanding the distance that we send notices out. I know that's going to be more work for administration, but it would give people the opportunity to be heard at planning and zoning, because people aren't able to come up and speak as to this matter because it's already heard at planning and zoning, and they might not know about it until after that has already happened. So I would like to see us at least look at that in the future going forward, to expanding a little beyond 200 feet. I don't think there's anything that would restrict us going further. I think that's a minimum standard by the state.
Mayor, just to clarify, what the state statute says is the city shall send out notices 200 feet, and I guess we can discuss the merits of that. I do think that the notification question is a balance. In other words, how quickly can you process the case to be efficient in terms of the business application, but also so you make sure you have due notice and the open hearing can move forward. So, but again, state statute says 200 feet.
But also similar to our city council meeting, the P&Z meeting is publicly posted as well. So the agenda for planning and zoning and those other boards are publicly posted. They're also live streamed on YouTube.
Yes.
And so individuals who I guess are interested in terms of what's happening in their neighborhood, those things are advertised both on the city website, but also publicly posted as well. So in terms of personally mailing out the individual notices to the 200 feet, we do that, but we also make sure that it's posted for anyone who's interested in developments in their neighborhood.
Councilman Samuel?
Yeah, that would mean, when it says shall, that means there's a requirement for anyone within 200 feet to be notified.
Correct.
But we could extend that by ordinance if we chose to. We could send it to folks 300, 400 feet if we desire to do that. but it just means that it's at minimum, we have to notify folks within 200 feet. Is that correct?
The statute says shall send within 200 feet.
So I guess it's a matter of interpretation.
It's a matter of interpretation.
Of whether or not we're going to be more restrictive than state law. And I'm happy to reach out to some affiliates and do some research on that issue. But I would caution council that we want to not be more restrictive than state law. So whether or not we consider that to be a baseline, or that's saying whether or not we're interpreting that to be a baseline, or if that's what the state is requiring us to do, and doing more than that would be more restrictive, it's something I'm going to do some research on and come back to council on that. So Councilman Getz has asked to know, can we send, or should we be sending out notices further to make sure that we're reaching all neighbors? We'll just do some research on that issue and circle back.
And where it becomes complicated is this very rule that we're talking about here, where the supermajorities require the 20% rule. In other words, it's tied to that 200 feet. So if you start to get beyond that, then it becomes more complicated, if we can even do it legally. The other thing is, in some cases, you may only have a half a dozen properties within 200 feet. In some cases, you may have dozens and dozens. So the further you push out, of course, you'd have to do it across all applications.
Well, I do understand that, but this is not the first time that has been an issue in that very area, even though I have my own concerns about the process. But 200 feet could possibly allow the first street following the area to not be apart, to not be in the same zone. Like here, GCMD, General Commercial 2, is on Calder, fronting Calder. Am I correct?
GCMD, just GCMD is on Calder side. If you go to the west side of 6th, it's GCMD 2.
Okay, but if you go to McFadden, that would be what? That's historical preservation. Am I correct?
Most of McFadden on both sides is RCRH, which is what this is.
Exactly.
Most.
So that's where a problem exists. The front side of a property could be okay with general commercial, multifamily, but the backside of that same property could be on McFadden, or it could be on, well, we'll just say McFadden. So that could have a major impact by expanding the notice area to at least the other side of the street from there. Could be a major impact, because we're having an existing problem now because we failed to, well, I'm not going to say it's basically because we failed to notify those that are there. They know it, but that would impact that supermajority need. So I believe that it would be advantageous for us to look at whether we should give notice and give additional footage so that that can be remedied. Because that's not the first time, and probably won't be the last time we've had issues, simply because that tract of property can extend from halfway to the next, and that just moves the boundary. So, and that's just my feeling about it.
We'll expect a very lengthy memo, Councilman.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you read it.
Councilman Neal.
So not to interfere with the voting block of that, or the supermajority, couldn't you continue to send out to the 200 feet for the vote purpose, but send out for a larger area just for just a common courtesy of letting them know what's happening in the neighborhood?
But then that would require, when they come, we would have to identify exactly where they are.
So we do that by addresses, and again, we'll be in the memo.
And
Thank you.
one other suggestion is neighborhood associations alerting the presidents and the neighborhood associations so that if they have an effective means to get it out within their neighborhood, then they can share it. And that could keep down the workload within, for city staff. And yes.
Well, I guarantee you in that area, that's not going to be an issue, because they will come out to voice their concern.
Every time.
Every time.
All the time.
All right, any other discussion?
I know.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second on the motion on the rezoning of item number 6
To deny.
to deny it. All those in favor of denying the rezoning of number 6, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion is carried. It is
Need a roll
denied.
So it is a roll call vote.
That's what I was going to get to next. Thank you.
So the city clerk's gonna call your name.
It's been
we can do
15
double
minutes. I
coverage.
forgot.
It's just
It's in
double
your notes.
coverage.
Yeah, I know it is, but I'm not reading right now.
Ready? Okay. Mayor West.
I vote against it.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Turner.
Deny.
Councilmember Durio.
Deny.
Councilmember Getz.
Deny.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Deny.
Councilmember Samuel. And Councilmember Neal.
I was voting to deny it, so just for
For
clarity.
clarification, I want to be clear. The motion was to deny
Deny.
the motion.
So we should have
So if you,
been voting for approval to deny it.
so
Well,
and-
the motion was to deny it.
yeah, so
Right.
Councilman
But we
Getz, you
just
voted to deny,
They
and you made a
voted to
motion to
deny.
approve.
Motion to deny.
So if it's a motion to deny, do you really need a supermajority?
I don't think
It
I
wasn't
should be
to pass, it was
criticized
to
for my
deny.
earlier
You said-
I
mistake.
think it might have been a simple majority.
Yeah, it's still,
Yeah.
it's the same. It still needs to be, yeah,
Okay.
it's the same. But I just wanted to be clear because you made a motion to deny it and then you approved it with your vote.
Okay, so do we need to revote?
I just want you to be clear on your vote.
Then I would call for a revote.
Okay.
Mayor West.
I am
Yes or no
approving.
for
The motion
denial.
is the motion is to
motion is to
deny.
deny.
So if you want to approve the motion, you say, if you are for the motion, you'll say for. If you are against the motion to deny, you'll say against. Let's do it that way. So if
Earning
you're
your
for,
keep today.
if you're for the
For.
motion to deny the motion, you'll say for.
I'm
If you're for the motion,
motion.
okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner.
For.
Councilmember Durio.
I'm for the motion to deny.
Councilmember Getz.
I am for the motion to deny.
Councilmember Felshaw.
For.
Councilmember Samuel.
I am for the motion to deny.
And Councilmember Neal.
For.
Thank you.
Y'all worked me so hard.
Now, can we have a roll call vote? And well, first we need a motion for the specific use permit,
Yes.
even though it was denied. So
Yes, you're still
I
required.
move to deny the specific use permit.
we need a second.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to deny the specific use permit. May we have a roll call vote?
Mayor West.
I vote for.
Mayor Pro
Approval.
Tem Turner.
For.
Councilmember Durio.
For the motion to deny.
Thank you. Councilmember Getz.
I also vote for the motion to deny the specific use permit.
Councilmember Felshaw.
For to deny.
Councilmember Samuel.
I vote against the motion to deny.
Thank you. And Councilmember Neal.
For.
Thank you.
I'd like to have a statement.
You may have a statement. Council.
I simply voted against it because from experience, I know that if you meet all the criteria that's set forth by the city, but individual feelings can impact that, I feel that that is somewhat unfair, but it's just. So that's why I voted against it, because the applicant met all the qualifications, but in this instance, the surrounding neighbors have the last call. So that's why I voted against.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into item number 7?
Council, consider a request for a rezoning from GCMD, General Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling District, to RS, Residential Single Family Dwelling District, or a more restrictive district for property located at 1590 Concord Road. And it comes with the recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 7?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approval?
Discussion.
Right. There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 7. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into item number 8?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a worship facility in the GCMD2 Jones Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling 2 District for property located at 7285 Calder Avenue. And it comes with the recommendation of approval with the following conditions. Construction plans shall comply with all applicable building, health, and fire codes and landscaping requirements. Construction plans must meet all requirements about water utilities for water and sanitary sewer services, including any requirements of the city's backflow, pre-treatment, and/or fog program. No permanent structures or appurtenances shall be placed within the easement property. And 4, shall submit a drainage and parking lot plan to include proper storm sewer design, delineated parking spaces, and erosion control measures for the proposed and future parking lot. And 5, relocate the dumpster for easier access by the garbage truck.
Is there a motion? We have a recommendation? Yeah.
With those conditions.
Is there a motion for item number 8?
I move to approve the specific use permit with the recommendation, with the conditions.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 8. Any discussion? Councilman Turner, then Councilman Neal.
I support your church, Pastor. I just got a question. A citizen text me this. So make sure I say that so we're clear, all right? What happens in the instance if it's maybe a bar or a restaurant with a liquor license in a facility prior to a church being built? Is it grandfathered in, or how does that work?
You want that, Chris?
Yes, so if the bar is already there, of course, the church can go there. If the church is already there, a new bar cannot, if it's within that distance.
So what happens if that bar closes, another bar can't reopen there?
Okay, I just wanted to ask. I promised them I would ask.
Councilman Neal, did you have a question? Then Councilman Getz.
Yeah, on recommendation number 5, why do we care about the dumpster or telling them
So
where to relocate?
we sent out notices to all departments to do that. As you're aware, if a dumpster is easily accessible, it doesn't require our trucks to back or to make unnecessary turns, which in turn reduces accidents. So that was something that was presented at planning and zoning. He would have had an opportunity to contest that. They had no problem with moving the dumpster.
But that won't be a city garbage truck going in there.
It won't, but this is new construction. And so with that, it gives us an opportunity to make sure that the development develops properly and efficiently. And so, again, the applicant was okay with that. And while it would be a private dumpster service, we know that sometimes they pick up early in the morning and they make noise when they back up. And so you want to make sure that that's as efficient as possible so as not to negatively impact the neighbors.
Well, thank you.
Councilman Getz?
Pastor Sharp, look forward to having you in the neighborhood. I don't think there's any bars anywhere around there. There's any land that's going to be available, but this will be across from Calder Woods, and it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood, and look forward to having you over there. Thank you.
All right, all in favor of approving item number 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you take us into item number 9?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a drinking place in the GCMD, which is a general commercial multiple family dwelling district for property located at 2576 Interstate 10 East. And at a joint public hearing on October 23rd, it was recommended to deny the request for a special use permit to allow a drinking place there.
Is there a motion for item number 9?
I move to deny.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 9 to deny it. Any discussion? Councilman Turner?
Is a drinking place considered a bar?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, so we are on item number 9. Yes, sir. And we have, in the middle of the discussion, it's been moved and seconded for denial of the drinking. So any other discussion? All in favor of approving the denial, approving number 9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. At this time, we will go into a work session review to discuss whether to split the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee into 2 separate committees. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, Assistant City Manager Chris Boone's going to come and lead the discussion on this work session. We've had this question brought up by council in some previous meetings, so we're bringing it to you for our presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Again, the purpose of this work session is to review whether or not it would be in the best interest of the citizens of Beaumont to split the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee into 2 separate committees. The current committee is established by ordinance, comprised of 14 members, and the duties of the committee are as outlined by the ordinance as followed. And again, you should have in front of you a copy of the memorandum as well as the ordinance establishing the committee. And I'll go ahead and read some of that language out of the ordinance. The purpose is to recommend Parks and Recreation objectives and policies, assist in planning for a continuing program of Parks and Recreation services and development, assist the Parks and Recreation Director in keeping the city officials and the public informed about the current Parks and Recreation trends, and recommend to the Parks and Recreation Director changes and improvements which will update the Parks and Recreation services. As you recall, earlier this year, the Parks Department was divided into 2 separate departments. The Parks and Green Space Department, which is responsible for maintaining and enhancing green spaces along many of our streets, highways, our planted areas, and parks throughout the city. And then the Recreation Department, which is charged with establishing, enhancing, and managing the variety of sports and activities at various city facilities, especially at those parks maintained by the Parks and Green Space Department. Again, in order to review the wisdom of the request of splitting the committee, Kenneth Reguette, Director of Parks and Green Space, Jimmy Neal, Director of the Recreation Department, June Ellis, Assistant City Manager, and I met to review the request. After extensive discussion, mainly focused on the considerable overlap in responsibility of the 2 departments, the consensus was to not create a new committee at this time. The memorandum, again, before you discusses the concern that given the extensive overlap in responsibilities of the 2 departments, it would be difficult for the 2 separate boards to function efficiently independently. We expect an ongoing issue of one board wondering what the other board is doing as we discuss various issues that are pertinent to both departments. That said, though, we are recommending that we revisit this question in about a year. We do have in this year's budget funds for a recreation and open space master plan, and we expect that to be completed either late this year or early next year. But part of the scope of work for that plan will be to look at this very question and look at best practices across the country to see if indeed, whether or not we should create a new committee. Secondly, in the meantime, we do recommend that the agenda for the Parks and Rec, existing Parks and Rec Committee, that we have a separate section. In other words, we have a section dedicated to recreation and we have a section dedicated to parks and green space, so that those can be addressed independently but also discussed together. In addition, we do recommend that if the need arises, perhaps due to additional funding from the beautification fund that's been set up, that there may be a need for a subcommittee of the Parks and Rec Committee that's formed to allocate those funds. In addition, it may be necessary to create a separate ad hoc beautification committee, which is similar to something we did back in 2007, 2008, when we did some extensive beautification planning in the city. And then finally, we have provided you a list of your appointees to the existing committee. We would encourage you to continue to review that list and also take a look at the attendance records over the past couple years. And again, encourage you to look at that list for your appointees because again, a committee is only as good as the participation and involvement of its members. So with that, are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Councilman Getz?
I think you make some good observations about the difficulty in having two committees and the overlap. My question, though, goes to how these meetings should be structured. You talked about having separate sections for recreation and for parks and green space. For the last few years, these meetings have been run by Parks and Recreation kind of as report meetings. And unlike most city advisory boards, which is run by the chair, I would like to see these meetings run by the chair and let staff participate as needed and as called upon, like most of our advisory boards are. One other question I have is, how often is a chairman for this committee selected, and what is the process for that?
So let me, as I look at the ordinance, I'll go ahead and mention your first question or point. We have had that discussion as well. In other words, I know Mr. Ellis and I, we've been to a couple meetings now in the last year, especially with the allocation of the parks enhancement funds that we're allocating as we speak. And it was a bit staff-driven, and so we've had discussions about having the chairman take a more active role, which is more typical of a committee or commission of the city. And so I think that process is underway. Regarding your question of the chairman, I know Mr. Neal's in the audience. He may be able to help me out, but I believe the terms are 2 years. But let's see, the city council shall name one of the members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee as the chairman for 2 years, so 2 years.
Councilman Turner or Mayor Pro Tem Turner?
Whichever you prefer, man. Chris, is this just with Parks and Recs? Do we do the chairman like that with every position? And I know I've served the term. I don't remember. Maybe I might have to ask one of my more seasoned council members, like Councilmember Getz and Councilmember Samuels. Do you guys normally change the chair every 2 years, or how does that work? Maybe our attorney can help me out with this.
In the past, and we've gotten really better at our record keeping. It's just kind of been just like revolving. And so after, what we're going to do this year is after we have everyone's appointees done, we'll submit those to the council, the ones where the council appoints the chair versus the ones where the mayor appoints the chair. We'll submit those for y'all to vote. So you'll see that as a consent item to appoint those chairs. I will remind you that not everybody has submitted their appointments. Not going to call any names, but you know who you are. So as soon as we get all those in, we can do that.
Okay, and Mr. Williams, my second question was just so I kind of can get a general idea of how our Parks and Rec department to feel about actually these staying together. Is that okay with you? I can kind of see where everybody is on it, or I know we said we had a committee, but I just want to make sure we're gonna function if we keep it merged together. I just want to be productive, man.
Yeah, I could go either way, council member. But you know, I think if staff has that recommendation, I can follow their recommendation on that. I don't have any heartburn either way, so to speak. But just whatever works best for us as a city.
Yes. Councilman Durio?
Chris or Attorney Reed, do they have any other committees that are made up of two different departments?
Well,
It's weird because the Animal Advisory Board is police and animal control. So they kind of have like representatives from both.
this one is,
They meet separately, though.
yeah, this one, of course, is dedicated to parks traditionally, now Parks and Rec separately. But I also think about Planning Commission. It's pretty much tied to planning and community development. But that said, every department is responsible to be responsive to it. I can't think of any others that would be divided.
Okay, thank you.
For clarity, so we can give staff direction, is everybody good with their suggestion here so that at this point it won't need to come back to us until a year?
I'd rather be honest. I'd rather see it separated, like structure with any other business. You don't want things overlapping. I get it that they're similar, but for me, I'd rather be transparent up front. I'd rather see it separated, but if the entire council doesn't feel that way, I'm completely okay with it.
And I was leaning towards separating them before, but after hearing the explanation, I'm fine with waiting. Okay,
All right, thank y'all.
thank you. This time, it's time for public comments, and oh, it is not.
We don't do that anymore. Read your notes.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Here, Mayor Ken. Mayor West doesn't allow that anymore.
Well, that's the problem. I was reading. I need not read, see? Yeah, council member comments. Sure. That was actually council member comments, correct. And now, which is what I meant to say, but I'm confused and dazed today. Councilman Neal.
All right, everybody follow my lead. No comment.
Councilman Pelshaw.
Just everyone, please pay attention. Be careful tonight driving about. Our children will be out trick-or-treating, so please watch for pedestrians. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Turner.
No comment.
See, that happened before.
Terrified.
Councilman
Kids are
Getz.
flying.
Echo what Councilman Felshaw said about being safe tonight. And I also want to compliment Alan Perkins and Jay Jenkinson on the opening of their new restaurant downtown, Riverside Grill, which is a great addition to downtown, and look forward to their success.
Councilman Durio.
Chris, just when or Sheree, when are we gonna actually be able to appoint the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee?
So we still have two.
Or this is after some of the folks that hadn't turned theirs in,
I'm not gonna say any names, but
Well,
Mayor Pro Tem and the senior councilman hasn't submitted. I know they're busy. They have a lot going on, so we're just waiting on those. And
I wanted to make sure we weren't gonna separate it. I need to be transparent before I communicate with my people.
That's what the mayor said. So as soon as we have all those in, so I can tell you that we have several appointments coming up on the next meeting on the 7th, and then Councilman Aldwin and Councilman Turner will need to get theirs in by that meeting. So hopefully by end of November, before Thanksgiving.
All right, now,
Just for the record, some of us have jobs.
I said that. Councilman L did get his in.
Some of them.
Not all of them.
Well, he's telling.
all right, gentlemen. So,
Thanks, you called out two names already.
Ms. City Manager, do you have comments?
I get to say happy Halloween to
Yeah, you
everybody
do.
and thank my staff and the mayor for participating in my shenanigans to do Barbie. So thank you.
Nothing there.
I do have a comment, Mayor. Just want to remind citizens that we have our citywide cleanup event scheduled for this Friday, November 3rd. Currently, we have 593 BISD students who will be participating. That doesn't include faculty at BISD. City will be partnering with BISD in the morning, and in the afternoon, city staff and residents will be involved in the citywide cleanup event from 12 to 4 o'clock. Currently, we have 149 city staff and residents who have signed up. So you still can sign up all the way up until the morning of November 3rd, this Friday. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to thank the Madam City Attorney and her staff for sharing Barbie's World with us today. They were all just beautiful, so we enjoyed it. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
As far as our Halloween contest, pumpkin contest, I'd like to congratulate the Water Utilities Department for getting first and second. On there, some staff thought that they might have cheated just by saying because of the drought, we're not going to dress up a pumpkin and get first place. So they did that. So it was good for the staff, a good camaraderie, and they're excited about the next opportunity to do something. And we've already talked about the December holidays. And you have your new department updates, if you haven't had a chance to see them in your packets. Not packets, but through email. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me, City Manager, but don't forget the City Clerk's office came in 3rd place for the Halloween contest. Don't leave us out. That was, we
Top
can't
three
leave.
in the
We
future.
worked really hard on that
Apologize.
pumpkin. Yeah.
The only comment I will make, most everything's been covered, but we are having our first Neighbors Helping Neighbors community meeting on Monday at the 6th at the Lakeside Center at 5:30, and this is about having churches and nonprofits and anybody that is willing to participate in assisting your neighbor here in the community. We're looking to be more effective in helping that happen. With that, the meeting is adjourned. And happy Halloween.